Well, welcome back to Podiatry Marketing. I am the co-host, Tyson Franklin, and with me today is Jim McDannald. How are you doing today, Jim? You handsome bugger.
Wow. I'm doing much better now. Hopefully I'm not too red in the video version of the podcast, but I'll take all compliments that are coming my way. It looks like you could use a little bit of a shave there, but
I know. I
I'm
was just looking at
always,
that.
but I'm usually the hairier one of us too, so I'm not one to really like make too much fun there. So
Well, that's why I was about to shave before I came on here, and then I realised well, Jim doesn't shave most times, so I'm thinking I'm not going to shave either. And then I'm looking and I'm going, God damn, I look scruffy, and you're looking a little bit tidier today. That's why I came up with you. I was going to call you a handsome bastard, but and I've already said it, so I should have just started with that. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today?
today we're going to talk about the 7 common podiatry marketing mistakes, and then how people can try to avoid them, or create better habits that will lead to more success and to accelerate practice growth. I think there's we've talked about kind of getting started. We've talked about a lot of tactics here recently, but I think it's kind of good to go back to some of the basics and just kind of overview some of those things we touched about in other shows, but just really kind of like drill down on like 7 things that people can focus on, because
Like
there's so
7,
much stuff out. Yeah, the top 7.
It's probably about 150. It's probably 150
exactly.
mistakes they make. But I like the idea of bringing it down to the main 7 that if they can address those problems, they're going to just do so much better in their marketing.
No, for sure.
So where do we start? What's the first one that you think, are these in order of importance, or these are just the top 7 not ranked in any particular way?
I would say the last one is probably the most important, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. And we actually touched on it a little while ago, but these other 6 are just kind of like no specific order. And the first one's really about taking a little bit of time. I think sometimes people don't take enough time to reflect about what they want to do in their practice. What does their ideal practice look like? There's just really, people just lack some self-reflection, and they in turn, they try to be kind of everything to everyone. So I'd say that's kind of the first mistake.
Yeah, that's how they say. If you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nobody for no one. Is that what they say? Is that
Nothing to nobody, maybe, or
nothing to nobody?
no
Yeah,
one?
something like that. But and it's true. It's think about. I read once and it said, what does your ideal day look like? And your ideal day is going. It's not just your ideal patient, but it's like, or your ideal clinic, but what's your ideal day look like? And then your ideal week, your ideal month. So it all comes back to self-reflection.
And if you don't do that though, right? Like, you're going to be starting a practice, you're not going to be busy. I mean, it's not that you can't, get started and do some things. Maybe you'll want to move away from down the line. But if you have a clear vision of exactly who you are and what you want to do, not only does it help you feel good about your day, like you said, like deciding what's a perfect day for you to look like, but it helps kind of craft how you're going to talk to other people about what you do. Maybe it's other people in your community, other healthcare professionals. You just have to have that kind of self-knowledge and kind of know thyself before you just kind of jump in there. Obviously we're all kind of doing some form of foot and ankle medicine or healthcare. So there is already kind of a niche there, but what is that kind of like that niche that's one step further that would make you super amped up and pumped up to go into the office or into the clinic each week?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention it. I had a conversation with a group of podiatrists last night with the Spartans group that I have. And that was a question I asked them, what's something you love doing? And I asked each of them individually, what do you love doing? Over anything else, if you could see 5 patients tomorrow, what would that patient be like? And it was surprising. I mean, it said, I just love ingrown toenails. And I said, ingrown toenail surgery or just ingrown toenails? And they said, either or. They said, I just love ingrown toenails because you get a result at the end of it. The patient walks out of pain, whether it was through surgery or just routine care. And I said, okay, that's really cool. So with your marketing, your last marketing thing, how much of your last marketing was all based around ingrown toenails? And hang on, I have to think about that. So that's the thing. And this is where you need to do your self-reflection. It's what do you love doing? And if that's what you love doing, then it needs to be in your marketing.
No, that's a huge component, right? If you have to kind of show that to the world, because no one's just going to know what you like to do. They're going to see you as the foot doctor, but they don't know much more beyond that. So it's up to you to really like craft that message, to know what you want to do, and kind of go out there and get it.
Yeah, I said to someone once, they told me what they love doing. I said, if what you love doing was illegal, could I find enough evidence on your website to convict you? And majority of podiatrists would get let off. there wouldn't be enough evidence on there to say, yeah, no, that is what they really love doing. I just can't find it because they go so broad.
No, it's when you're just getting started, or even in the way we're taught in podiatry school, it just can be easy just to try to be everything to everybody and just to be a catch-all for all foot and ankle problems. But as you set up that message about who you are and what you do, you're able to better attract those kind of ideal clients or those ideal patients to your practice.
Yeah, and once somebody said, like on this call last night, but what if I don't know what I love yet? And I said, well, that's okay. Then just do everything until you figure it out. But you might find there may be 10 different aspects of podiatry that you love, but if you had to rank them, you'll find there will be something that's going to be more towards the top.
No, for sure.
But I think new podiatrists, like I know when I graduated, I said, I want to work with elite athletes. This is my thing. I'm going to work with elite athletes. I'm going to be a friggin' awesome podiatrist for elite athletes. 12 months later, I'm going, if I get one more elite athlete walking this clinic, I'm going to, I said, they're the last people that I want to work with. They drove me nuts. I would rather work with weekend warriors. But as a student or as a recent graduate, I assumed that's what I wanted to do. And I could have tried to base my whole clinic around that. But initially, I just went, I'm going broad. This is what I love doing, so I'm going to push down that. But then I realized I didn't like them. They were too much hard work.
But I think that's a great point, though. It's kind of like, it's not necessarily just deciding this is it, but testing those ideas or kind of those things you think you might want to do with some real world, and then adjust and pivot as time goes on. It's about being flexible, learning who you are, learning what you're doing. It's not just a static thing.
Yeah. So what's next on the top 7 of Jim's tips?
So number 2, I would say is, once you start doing some marketing, people sometimes make it all about themselves, like them and their training, them and their clinic, them and they do this thing. And while you need to tell people what you do, it's really more about showing the benefits you can provide your patients than it is really like your website to be a resume of the amazing residency or fellowship or podiatry school experience you had. So I think that's really what it's about, is to like make sure that the marketing that you do, whether it's your website, Google Ads, any kind of thing online or offline, it really needs to lead first with that benefit that you provide people in your community or the patients that come to your practice.
I think that relates to everything in life, though. It'd be no different to somebody talking to you about marketing or someone coming to me wanting to do business coaching. It's how can I help them is the important part. They don't care what I've done or what I can do. It's how can I help them? So if that's how they would choose a business coach or other things in their life, then they've got to realize the patients are thinking the same thing. How can you help me? So please tell me.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like they call it servant leadership or steward leadership, where it's really like people are coming to you for help and assistance, and like that is kind of what the service you provide people. So when you're able to show that in your marketing, that it's not just like, look at me, I'm the foot surgeon, like obviously you want to like show you treating specific types of patients and showing your expertise is important on your website, but it is those benefits that you provide your patients that is really going to like speak their language and really connect with them when they see your website or the marketing that you're doing.
Yeah, I remember a chiropractor here in Cairns. They're not here anymore, so I can talk about them. And they used to send out their monthly newsletter, used to be hard copy. And my wife and I would get it and we would read it and just go, my God. And in the newsletter, it was all about the trip they'd just taken, overseas, and photos, the new BMW, the matching BMWs they just bought themselves. And the whole newsletter was about them. Very little was about the patients or how they can help you or what they were doing in the community. It was so centered around them that was to the point of almost being repulsive.
Yeah, like I said, that's a perfect example of why it should be about the patients and not totally about you.
So what's number 3?
Number three is really like, so you say you want to do marketing, you want to do certain things. This is going to require a certain amount of like work, follow up, and accountability. And if you don't have a system in place, let's say maybe it's a member of your staff that's doing it, or you're outsourcing it to like a marketing expert, you're going to run into problems because like this is more work. This is something that's not just like all these marketing ways of acquiring new patients or showcasing some of the services you provide. If someone claims it's kind of like set it and forget it, they're kind of selling you a bill of goods because this does take consistent effort, work, refinement, adjusting things on the fly. So you have to have an accountability system, either with somebody internal on your team that's reporting to you, showing you what they're doing, how they're making improvements, iterating on it, making it better, or working with kind of like an industry leader, someone who knows the profession, who you work with and trust and have built trust with over a period of time, to be that person who is working on your behalf. So that's kind of an important thing because, especially I would say like solo practitioners or people that are solo providers, you've got so many other things going on. If you think you're going to find some magic marketing solution that just like is an automated flywheel, I'm a little skeptical that that's really possible.
Yeah, it's interesting what you talk about, the whole accountability. It's no different to when we went through university. The reason they give us exams is to make us accountable. They can't just say, oh, Tyson, we just assume for the last 4 years you've actually done the work that you said you were going to do, and now you're qualified. No, every semester, no, we'd like you to do these exams just to prove that you have actually been doing the work. Problem is when we get out and we have our own business, this is where I think business coaching is probably has the most benefit, is it keeps people accountable. Like I know people that I work with, if they don't do what they're supposed to be doing and they're not getting the results they're supposed to be getting, there's no point us working together. So, but if you're going to do it yourself, you have to be accountable to yourself, and trying to think. Yeah, I was accountable at university, so I've been taught for so many years on how to be accountable because there's an exam. To me, you should constantly be testing yourself.
No, that's an excellent point. I would say also a lot of these different marketing platforms are always changing. They're always like adjusting. So like it's not that like these things can't work kind of as a set it and forget it, but like in 3 months Google's going to change something, or in 6 months like Apple will change a browser so you can no longer track exactly how that Facebook ad or that Google ad is working. And unless you're like in the day to day, like you may not understand how much of an impact that can have on your practice. So you need to have either someone on your staff that's paying attention to that, or work with kind of an industry or like a podiatry, a marketing expert, or someone that, you build a relationship that is in it every day, that knows these little details. Because it's, you can understand 90% of it, but if you can't, understand all of it and be able to really make those adjustments as these platforms are changing, you'll soon be left behind. And the things that worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago, like those don't work today anymore. And there's a reason why. So you really have to be on it on a consistent basis with those changes in these different systems to understand what's working today.
Yeah, if I went back 15 years ago and somebody said, what's my number one marketing platform that I use? TV and radio were absolutely awesome for me. Because TV and radio, we didn't have Netflix, we didn't have all the streaming services. So people watched TV. So my market watched TV. Now, probably TV and radio, well, probably not just radio, because radio still work at a certain way. But TV, I wouldn't go near it because it's just, things have changed so much and people's attention is so different. Somebody posted something the other day in the UK podiatry group, and was like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this type of ad. What's everyone's feedback? And I just wanted to headbutt my computer. Because the comments that were coming through, I'm going, it's more to it than just, I'm just going to put this ad in here. What does everyone think? And to me, that's what holds people back, is they're not educating themselves on this sort of stuff. And they think, if I ask this group, those 10 comments that I got from people, now I've got all the advice I need. And I'm thinking, some of the comments weren't too bad, but about 7 out of the 10 were just rubbish.
Yeah, I would say that's, I totally agree there because I think sometimes these platforms as well, they try to make it look super easy. So it makes it feel like it's going to be this thing where like all I have to do this one thing and I'll have success. But behind the scenes, it's much more complex on a lot of these different platforms.
Yeah, well, the one comment somebody said to them, well, before you do any marketing or whatever magazine they were going to go in, and they said to them, who are you targeting? Well, who is your ideal client? That was the main thing they said. And I think that's a good question to ask, but there's so much more like leading up to that, in the first place, because they might have an ideal client, but if their clinic's not set up to address those ideal clients, they're sort of going to be wasting the time as well.
Totally agree.
Oh, I get the shits quick, I tell you. Sorry. Okay. So, Jim, lucky we don't just release the whole video sometimes. So Jim, let's move on. What is the fourth tip?
Yeah, I would say that sometimes people get a little too distracted by bright, shiny objects in the marketing world, right? They kind of lead with FOMO. They see that Snapchat is big or TikTok is big. And basically what happens is that, like we talked about previously, like these different channels and these different opportunities require a significant amount of not only work on the front end, but also on the back end to really to just keep things going and make things relevant for your specific audience. So if you go in too many different directions, it's a huge, lack of focus. You're wasting time. And I think this can be, it's kind of keeping up with the Joneses in a way, right? You see that this clinic is doing Instagram, so I have to do it. But really what you need to do is back up, gain some focus, and start with the website, right? That website is the home base of your entire online presence for your clinic.
The mothership.
Exactly. So, treat it as if it were your physical clinic, as long as you're treating your physical clinic really well. Yeah. Because that's going to be a lot of people's first impression of who you are, your professionalism, what you do. So instead of trying to do all of the things, focus on just having a killer website that attracts patients, that allows them to easily make appointments, that builds trust in them before they even step foot in your clinic. Avoid, and at least initially, avoid some of these other channels. You don't need an amazing website, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, I don't know, all those different things. Like, start off with one solid thing, and then you can build from there. Because if you don't have that solid online foundation, this other stuff is really kind of worthless and waste of time and effort.
Yeah, I saw a quote that I posted recently. It was, I was going to rule the world, but then I saw something shiny.
I like that.
But it's true. I've mentioned that, and we've talked about it before, where people will do something because it seems really popular at the time. So they'll see another podiatry clinic down the road, and they're doing these really cool videos, and they're pointing at things on the screen that, these words pop up, and I said, they're just going, and then you have a look at the people that like it. A majority of them are just other podiatrists they're all following each other because they're afraid, I might miss something. I don't think I had too many patients that tracked me down on Instagram, mainly because I don't think I had an Instagram account for my podiatry clinic. I may have, but I don't think so. But yeah, to me, I agree. Website has got to be at your forefront. If that is not nailed, you're wasting your time with all the other stuff. I mean, total waste of time. Totally. Because people have Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, they'll have all that stuff. And then and you say, oh, how's your website? Oh, no, I'm still working on that. It's under construction.
Yeah, that's bad news bears right there.
Bad news bears. Geez, that's old.
Well, speaking of old, we'll get to the next one, and that is a big mistake is insufficient marketing budget. So, yes, like obviously this is self-serving. I want everyone to spend $10,000 a month on podiatry growth marketing services. No, that's not it. But some people think that you can get an adequate return on an investment for $100 or $200 a month, and that should be enough. But really, you don't know. I mean, if you live in New York City, if you live in San Francisco, maybe $3,000 to $4,000 is like a median or an average amount, right? So it's really one of these things. I think that people they need to kind of find a way to test their marketing budget, to test the threshold. In a previous episode, we talked about what is a reasonable way to make a marketing budget. What are some hard numbers? But I would say that some people they want to kind of dip their toe in the water. And if you're dipping your toe, you're probably going to give yourself a great excuse why marketing doesn't work. Because until you kind of reach that threshold where your spend meets that return on investment, you really have to be willing to experiment when you jump in and do both online and offline marketing.
I agree 100%. And you can, I think the previous episode when we spoke about having your marketing budget, and I used to put a certain percentage back into it. And up until selling my clinic, I did very little online marketing myself because I'm in a regional area, and it was being connected with the community was what really drove our business. There were, say, 8 other podiatry clinics. We didn't have a lot of competition, so it wasn't. And I was always, if you Google podiatrists anyway, we were always number one. We just dominated. So I never had to do a lot of advertising online. These days, though, if I was setting up another clinic, I mean, the whole online side of things is really, really important. And you're going to get jack for $200. You're not going to get too much at all. So, but I think what you said is a good point. You got to test it out. You might put in 1,000 and see what response you get. And I always say, if I invested 1,000 and got 10,000 back, I would be putting in 2,000. Especially if I was getting 20,000 back, I'd be putting in 3,000 if I was getting 30,000 back. So look at the numbers and keep educating yourself in that area.
Well, you stole point number 6 here. And that's exactly what point number 6 is. That's totally okay. But it's having a system. People don't have a system to assess what's working and what's not working, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, you have to kind of test that budget, see what's working, what's not working. When something's working, you double down on it. You just keep on going back to that, testing it out. But just knowing what works and doesn't work is a huge aspect of that. And if you don't have some way of measuring or having a system to kind of write down, because you have so many other things going on in your practice, right? And in your life, are you going to remember this ad type, this video ad type versus this photo ad type? Was what worked and didn't work? So that's.
I was just going to show you something for a sec.
Yeah, let's take a look.
This is my marketing manual. So you said, well, this isn't technically the marketing manual on how to do it, but this is just some of the past things that I've tried and the feedback. That's why this is sounding very echoey now. It's because I'm holding a big folder above my head. So yeah, it's like the reason we came up with, the reason I have this is because we tested things. And we would note down when we were doing some form of marketing, we would note down on the marketing sheet what the weather was at the time, whether it was great weather, whether it was really bad weather. Because the weather effect, we found the weather, the temperature, the time of the year, so many things influenced our marketing. And that was whether you were doing offline or online. There were so many other variables. So I think the more information you can gather, you can always throw it away if you don't need it, but you've really got to gather the information and feedback.
Yeah, that was cool to see that folder. That's a thick folder there.
I tell you, what we used to do each year I used to create a folder for each year. Then at the end of each year, we'd block out 2 days, and I'd sit down. I used to hire this room that had bean bags and everything in there, a desk for your computer, and all the walls you could actually write on them. And so we would hire the room out for 2 days. I'd go in with all my marketing folders, and I'd sit there and I'd flick through everything from going back 10, 15 years, what worked, what didn't work, results, and I'd be recording everything. It was like a beautiful mind. I'd just be writing all this stuff up on the walls, and I'd do this for 2 days, and I'd take photographs of the wall, and that was my plan for pretty much the next year. And that's
awesome.
How I did things. And I'm just a stickler for KPIs and statistics. And to me, there's no point gathering information if you're not going to use it.
No, it's huge in making good decisions.
So what is Jim's number one mistake in the top 7?
And maybe this is a mistake because it's something I myself am guilty of. I'm not despite how I sound on this podcast, I'm not a perfect person. And I don't have all the answers, but I know that the thing that is going to separate a lot of people and make them really great and successful in their own practice and in life and in relationships and whatever you're going to do is consistency. Just being consistent with your marketing, being consistent with your messaging. It's not that it can't change, but when you're basically consistently putting yourself out there, you're not marketing for a month and then going away for 6 months, or you're not like saying, oh, this month I'm going to be a sports medicine podiatrist, and then next month I'm going to be a wound specialist or something, right? You can make some gradual changes over time, but it's just consistently putting in the work, consistently hammering home on your message, consistently like utilizing different forms of marketing to help grow your practice. Those are the things that makes people successful. So I think when people lack that consistency, they're kind of all over the map, or they don't have those things nailed down, or like, not consistent about some of those previous things we talked about. That's when people really run into trouble. If you're working hard on a consistent basis, and doing the right things, I think success will come.
Consistency is the key for everything, whether it's your health, your relationship, your business, the relationship with your team. It's really been consistent with everything. And I even found ourselves, whenever we did a campaign, anything we were going to be marketing, we had it in place. It was going to run for 6 to 8 weeks. That was the campaign. And what we were really pushing was going to be at the forefront on our website. Any online and offline marketing that we were doing, it was the same message that we were pushing out there. Then before that campaign finished, that's why it'd be 6 to 8 weeks, because we'd be basing it on the numbers to see how it went. We already had the next campaign worked out. So when that one finished, the next one started. So we would have, throughout the year, you could have, say, 6 to maybe 8 different campaigns as the year went on. But but you might be repeating them. So there's probably only 3 campaigns, but we would be rotating them as we went. I used to have this one ad that we used online and offline, and the title was, "Attention, people with heel and arch pain." That ad and the rest of the ad that went with it made me well over $1 million. It was just that headline: "Attention, people with heel and arch pain." And you know who it attracted?
People with heel and arch pain?
Funny, isn't it? Didn't attract people that needed their toenails cut or callus removed or some other. It attracted people with heel and arch pain. So that was consistency.
I would say on the side of like an online presence or a website, I think when I'm building somebody a website, right? I think I think a lot of the kind of relationships I've had with podiatrists that I've worked with is that when they first meet me, they think, okay, like this is going to be a person that builds me this thing, and then like that person will go away and I'll never see them again. But the way I have a relationship with the podiatrists I work with is a little bit different, right? Like I'm kind of a consistent partner, like kind of a marketing partner with them, because we're not going to see like it go from 50 new like website visitors to like 1,000 tomorrow or the next month. It is this gradual build, this gradual iteration in the content and the messaging, and testing things together, seeing what opportunities we have in their local area to really help them gain kind of awareness with their local community. So it is like, even with my own work, right, when I'm working with podiatrists or when I'm trying to promote this podcast, it is really about trying to be consistent in the long term. That's going to really reap the best results and build those strong bonds of trust to really help people accelerate their growth in like a sustainable and like helpful way, as opposed to some like empty promise or some like, I don't know, just like some unrealistic expectations about what's possible with marketing or practice.
I think with the consistency and everything else you've summed up here, a lot of people will say, I don't need to market myself. My reputation will build my clinic. No, it won't. That's a simple answer. Reputation used to years ago, but it doesn't anymore. And that's why some podiatrists that have been out for a number of years who had great reputation, great clinics, are getting their ass kicked by the younger people coming through who realize, if I want to build my clinic, I need to market my business. It's just the way that it is. And the ones that I've seen who are succeeding are the ones that last point, they're consistent with what they do. But the problem sometimes they can have is when they get to that point where they think they've made it and they don't need to market anymore because, I've now made it, then they very quickly get overtaken. You need to just, it's something you need to just keep working. Your business is like a living organism. You need to just keep feeding it, and you need to keep trying to grow it. It can't stay stagnant.
That's well put.
The Red Queen hypothesis. That in every environment, organisms are fighting against each other, which is why in nature they overproliferate, because they know that not every turtle that do you know turtles that are born, out of every 1,000 that are born, how many make it to adulthood?
20.
One. Only 1 out of 1,000 actually makes it, which is why they produce so many, because in nature, all these organisms are competing, and animals and all that are competing for the same space. So marketing is no different. You can't just have one idea and put it out there. You've got to have multiple ideas and be chucking them out there and killing them off as you go, because that's what nature does. You've got to kill these things off and see which is the strong one, and then you just keep running with it. So, Jim, have you got anything else to wrap up? Since I was raving on.
No, that's my fantastic 7 mistakes that I see when podiatrists are trying to do marketing.
And they were a great seven mistakes too. So until next week, Jim, I hope you have a fantastic day, whatever you got on for the rest of the day, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds great, Tyson. You too.
Okay, see ya.
Bye now.